All right. All right. I think we are ready to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the Ohio Legislative Children's Caucus. I am John Stanford, State Director for the Children's Defense Fund Ohio, and I am your facilitator this afternoon. Today, we will discuss the topic of childcare in Ohio, critical foundation for children, and a business imperative. According to a report by Policy Matters Ohio, the average annual cost of one infant's childcare in Ohio is over $800 each month. Ohio has the third lowest eligibility threshold in the nation for publicly funded child care at 145% of the federal poverty level for children 0 to 5 years old. Before this update that was made by Policy Matters, Ohio was last in the nation, which was shocking to me when I saw that report. 39% of Ohioans live in a child care desert, which is most prevalent in rural areas of the state and Appalachia, Ohio. In addition, a recent United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation study reported that inadequate access to child care is a major economic barrier in our state, driving parents out of the workforce, reducing state tax revenue, and placing a strain on household budgets. And the name of that report is Untapped Potential Ohio. As you can see, this is a critical issue for Ohio's children, families, and businesses. And there's been a lot of activity in the last couple of months with the state budget and also at the federal level. And so I am really pleased that we have our state experts here in the state of Ohio to share a little bit of information with us about the status of child care in the state of Ohio. Um, First, we have Qianna Tidmore, who is the executive director of the Ohio Association for the Education of Young Children. We also have Julie Stone, who is the executive director of the Ohio Head Start Association, Incorporated. And then last but not least, um, we have Lynanne Gutierrez, who is the president and CEO of Groundwork Ohio. For today's meeting, please hold your questions until the end of the presentations. We're going to go through all three presentations first, and then we'll open the meeting up for any questions that you may have from the panel. Okay, without any further delay, let's get started with Qianna. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up the slide deck, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you, John, for asking me to be on this call this afternoon. I am Qianna Tidmore, Executive Director of the Ohio Association for the Education of Young Children. My organization empowers all who cares for, educates, and advocate on behalf of young children. And so I recall being at the Groundwork event, being excited about the governor's budget, being excited about the impact of what could be, the hope of what could be based on what was in that budget. And before I knew it, that hope was ripped from me based on what has come at the budget at this point. And so today I'm going to present to you what Ohio EYC's um, policy priorities are.
I apologize. I'm still trying to get this straightened out. It won't let me do the
share the presentation. Start the
Yeah,
presentation first, then share.
yeah, and let me try it one more time. My apologies.
Click where it says slideshow.
Yeah, that's where I'm having the difficulty. For whatever reason, my pointer won't go over. There we go. Finally. Sorry about that. Um, all right, Qianna, it's on you.
The strategy for a stronger future, because the early childhood professional is definitely the workforce behind the workforce. So we would like our state government to invest in Ohio's early childhood professionals. Next slide.
Is it? Ah,
All right. So the first priority is to support the educators who make it all possible. We would like it to be a restoration and expansion of the workforce investments that recognize early childhood educators as essential professionals. Nearly all early childhood educators are women, and many are women of color. And we deserve fair compensation, benefits, and respect for the critical work that we do every day. The next priority is to fund childcare for childcare workers. We would like the childcare assistance for recruitment, retention employment called CARE. We would like it to be fully funded so that our early childhood professionals can have the assistance they need. This innovative support will help recruit and retain staff, keeping classrooms open and ensuring families have the access to care. Next, we want to protect payment on enrollment. The House added an amendment to transition Ohio's child care payment system from attendance-based to enrollment-based, aligning it with how public preschool is already funded. This shift ensures that financial stability for programs, strengthens staffing, and keeps quality learning environments open for children. Next, we would like the government to invest in childcare and restore the governor's funding. Restoring the governor's proposed childcare investments to stabilize and strengthen the entire childcare system. This includes restoring funding for the Child Care Choice Voucher Program, as well as increasing access to publicly funded childcare. And next, I am so excited to be a National Association for the Education of Young Children member, because we have adopted a unifying framework. And so our recommendation is that Ohio would also adopt this. There are other states across the country that have adopted it. There were 14 additional organizations within NAEYC, and they came together at the same table to represent members of the early childhood field, creating a consensus framework that articulates the career pathways, competencies, qualifications, standards, compensation, and infrastructure that will lead to a unified and diverse early childhood education profession, serving children birth through the age of 8 across the state and settings. So this would advance long-term progress by aligning educator roles, qualifications, and compensation. This is a consistent, well-prepared, and fairly paid workforce, improving quality across all settings and helping to stabilize the field. So what does the data say? So there are 58,600 early childhood educators currently working in Ohio from birth through age 5. 23% of these professionals rely on public benefits to make ends meet. Next slide. 46% of these educators indicate that they are burned out. And what does the data say? The estimated annual salary in Ohio is $23,234 for our early childhood professionals. This equates to $11.17 an hour. And what can they make at McDonald's? $13.25 an hour. And our early childhood professionals are building brains. And so this is a quote from a family childcare owner and operator. The program's expenses have consistently increased and calls for increases in tuition, as well as alternate ways of meeting expenses, such as credit cards. We need there to be an investment for the workforce behind the workforce. And so now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Julie Stone.
Thanks, Qianna. John, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. With Head Start being a federal to locally funded program, I think a lot of people just don't understand the foundation that it provides for the state early care and education ecosystem. So thank you for having me. Head Start leverages over $400 million federal dollars per year that go directly to local leaders in Ohio who design and implement the services that best meet the needs of their community. Head Start is the nation's leading provider of developmental and educational services for children from birth to 5 years old, supporting pregnant mothers, infants, toddlers, and preschoolers from low-income families. Through comprehensive nutrition, healthcare, early education, and family services, Head Start removes barriers to success and empowers families to thrive. You can go to the next slide. Head Start is child-centered. It's a poverty intervention program focused on the whole child to ensure that children reach kindergarten healthy and ready to learn. It's family-focused. Designed as a two-generational approach, Head Start supports parents with information about important developmental milestones, guidance on family self-sufficiency goals, job assistance, and more. We know that parents are their child's first and most influential teacher, and Head Start fosters compassionate partnerships to strengthen their ability to support their children. Whether in center-based settings or home visits, Head Start works with families to remove obstacles, improve educational outcomes, and break cycles of poverty. And parents play an active role, not just in their child's education, but also as volunteers, staff, and leaders in program governance. Head Start is comprehensive. We provide vision, dental, and hearing screenings, immunizations, mental health supports, nutrition services, and early education. And again, we're community-based. Head Start grants go directly to agencies from the Office of Head Start, so local leaders design and implement programming to meet the unique needs of their communities. Head Start programs are not one size fits all. They reflect the cultural, economic, and social fabric of each community. And those local leaders decide how to structure services, whether through center-based programs, home visits, or partnerships with schools and childcare providers. Head Start services are in all 88 counties in Ohio. Over 28,000 children were served last program year, including 22,000 preschool-age children and 6,000 pregnant moms, infants, and toddlers. There are 59 providers operating the 700 centers that you see on the map. Many Head Start and early Head Start programs are based in centers and schools. Others are located in childcare centers and family childcare homes. Some programs offer home-based services where they assign a dedicated staff who conducts weekly visits to children in their own home, and they work with the parent. About 10% of our centers are based at our 10% of our center-based children are served in childcare partnerships, and about a quarter of our early Head Start babies and toddlers are served in partnerships. The main eligibility criteria is income, with the threshold being the federal poverty level, which is just over $26,000 for a family of 3. Children experiencing homelessness and children in foster care are categorically eligible regardless of their income, and kinship children and SNAP recipients are also categorically eligible. In addition, we're required to reserve 10% of our slots for children with identified disabilities. And currently, it's about 14% of children enrolled in Head Start have an identified disability right now. Because Head Start is serving children with the greatest need, we are truly foundational to Ohio's early care and education ecosystem. Behind the numbers of children served are tens of thousands of working parents who are able to earn a paycheck, contribute to their communities, and set a stronger foundation for their families. Over 70% of Head Start parents in Ohio are working in school or in job training. And with over 7,000 dedicated staff, Head Start ranks among Ohio's 50 largest employers. So Head Start really is an economic engine as much as an educational and family empowerment one. Head Start accounts for 32% of Ohio's publicly funded early care capacity. And in rural and small town areas, Head Start is not one of many options. It's often the only option. 32 counties in Ohio rely on Head Start for more than half of their subsidized capacity. In many smaller communities, a cut to either early Head Start or Head Start funding would instantly erase the majority of publicly funded slots, thrusting families into childcare deserts. Rural regions would bear the brunt of such losses. Protecting and expanding Head Start overall is not a narrow programmatic choice, but a foundational investment in Ohio's workforce stability, educational equity, and community resilience. So this shows the percentage of subsidized care that Head Start comprises in each of the counties. So the darker the county, the larger percentage, and there are counties where it's up to 100%. So in rural and Appalachian Ohio, where infrastructure, childcare, and health services are often sparse or non-existent, Head Start fills a critical gap. Nearly half of all Head Start funds nationally go to rural areas, and in Ohio, it's over 55%. 60% of Ohioans live in childcare desert, and 1 in 4 children living in Appalachia live in poverty. And you can see that the rural counties are the ones where we have a much higher proportion of the subsidized care. And many children need developmental support. Children in Appalachia made up nearly 1 out of every 5 children receiving early intervention. And Head Start is not just the earliest path to identification and treatment, it's often the only one. Head Start centers provide developmental screenings, home visits, and mental health services where few other options exist. Quality early learning is a win-win for children's brain development and for parents' ability to work and to boost their family's finances. A poll from last month found bipartisan support for Head Start among Republican, Independent, and Democratic voters. For every dollar invested in Head Start, there is an economic gain of $7 to $10. This is realized in reduced expenses of grade retention, special education services, and a higher earning potential and economic success in adulthood, thus reducing dollars needed for public assistance in the criminal justice system. Head Start is a smart, targeted investment that supports learning and healthy development, strengthens family, and fuels local economies. Yesterday was the 60th birthday of Head Start, when it was originally signed into law by President Johnson. So for 60 years, Head Start has broken cycles of poverty, strengthened families, and built brighter futures for children. It's more than a program, it's a public investment with proven returns. In the face of today's challenges, from workforce shortages to health disparities, the need to protect and expand Head Start has never been greater. Now, we will hand it over to Lynanne to get us into the nitty-gritty of the business case.
Thanks, Julie, and thanks, John, for having us. I'm Lynanne. I'm from Groundwork Ohio. We are the early childhood advocacy organization focused in the prenatal 5 period of time. And our mission is uniquely focused there because 90% of brain development happens in the first 5 years. Next slide. And so childcare is kind of a bread and butter issue for us and for young children and families. And I would say for the last decade, and certainly far beyond the time that I've been at Groundwork, there's been a lot of engagement off and on with the business leaders across the state to help understand childcare and how it's a workforce support, both for the workforce of today, so our parental workforce, and the workforce of tomorrow as our little kids are developing and in 18 plus short years will become part of the workforce. Right now, Groundwork spends a lot of time engaging business leaders and working with them as they work with each other, where childcare has really become kind of at a fever pitch in the atmosphere, particularly after coming out of the pandemic. And as employers across the state are really looking for workers, we have, and what I'll share in a bit, is kind of a workforce on the sideline that's doing the best they can to provide for their families and fully engage in the workforce, but have challenges in doing so as a result of childcare. So these are all the partners we've been working with. Next slide. And we have a unique partnership with the Ohio Chamber and the Dayton Chamber, who talks to their peers in the business community. And this is a letter that was shared with the Ohio Senate and the Ohio House, sharing all of their shared priorities for childcare. And I just want to start here because we're in the middle of the budget period of time. So the ask really is to restore investments that the big system asks is to restore investments into or back to the governor's proposal, where we're trying to expand access and stabilize the system with state investment. Next slide. So we have this active business community that's now engaging very regularly and actively in policy advocacy for childcare, but just trying to back up and ask why the question, why are business leaders from all around Ohio and the nation sounding the alarm about the childcare crisis? Next slide. And the answer really is because Ohio businesses need reliable, growing, and diverse workforce to succeed. And as I shared, they're having challenges really getting that, especially coming out of the pandemic and as economic development efforts continue to advance, trying to match the needs of the workforce to what businesses can provide. Next slide. So a lot of the data that I'm sharing is from a public opinion strategies polling that we commissioned earlier this year that was published in January. We know that lack of childcare leads to underemployment and underemployment. Nearly 50% of working parents have cut back their hours to care for their children. So those working parents with kids 5 and under. And that translates to 1 million of Ohio working parents cutting back work hours due to childcare barriers. Next slide. The childcare crisis is significantly hampering recruitment and retention. We know that 48% of our small business owners say lack of available or affordable childcare affected their ability to recruit and retain employees. Next slide. And that parents themselves are identifying that childcare is a barrier to work. So 60% of parents cite lack of childcare as their reason for leaving the workforce if they've left the workforce. Next slide. One of the reasons childcare is such a barrier is just because it is so incredibly expensive. I think there were commentary on the cost beforehand, but the most recent published numbers put the average cost of infant care in Ohio at nearly $14,000 a year. Based on where you're at in the state, that may be a really good deal, quite honestly. But John also mentioned that in the state of Ohio, you only get support if you're at or below 145% of the federal poverty level. Which leaves most parents or many working parents not eligible for subsidy, but not able to foot this bill on their own. So many working families are making this really tough decision to try and understand whether work will pay or not, whether it makes sense for them to work or not. Next slide. We know that this high cost translates to really about the first $11 of any hour worked goes to childcare expenses. So you could imagine that even if you're paid $20 an hour, that only about half of your wage remains to pay for all those other basic needs and the things that come up, which have become exceedingly expensive, certainly for young children. We know the cost, Lending Tree cited that the cost of raising a child has increased 25%. So families are really feeling the squeeze, and childcare is a driving part of that. Next slide. Most Ohioans live in childcare deserts, so there's not available, even if families do have a subsidy or can operate in the private market, they may not be able to find or have access to available slots. So we know that almost 40% of all Ohioans live in a desert, and 60% of rural Ohioans live in a desert, which is why Head Start is certainly foundational to our entire system, but Julie pointed out why it's so important in those rural communities. Next slide. And translating to our state economy, John cited this newest report from the Chamber of Commerce Foundation in partnership with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, that Ohio loses approximately $5.48 billion per year due to childcare issues. And we also lose out on an additional $1.5 billion of revenue that could be coming to the state as a result. Next slide. So we wanted to share kind of what working parents, or whether they're your employees, they're your constituents of your members, or if you're legislative members or community members, tell us. Next slide. 25% of parents say their work performance has declined because of childcare issues. Next slide. 24% of parents say they've refused a job opportunity, promotion, or change because it would increase childcare expenses. Next slide. And half of working parents say that over the last couple of months, at the time of the poll, they've had to cut back on their work hours to care for their children. Next slide. So more than 40% of parents of young children have had to call off or miss a shift at work because of childcare issues. Next slide. And 1 out of 4 parents with young children have had to completely leave the workforce because of an inability to find affordable childcare. Next slide. We know that nearly 70% of Ohio parents with children under 6 identify at least one of these factors in their work lives. So most parents with young children are impacted by childcare barriers. Next slide. And 30% of Ohio parents with children under 6 have identified 2 to 3 of these factors when you're thinking about the impact on the family and that employer. And of course, if there's the childcare is causing so many barriers to work, it won't surprise you that when you ask stay-at-home parents of young children what would having childcare allow them to do, the response that really stands out is work. Next slide. And when parents of young children in childcare are asked what having childcare allows them to do if they're already in the workforce, they share the same, that it allows them to work. Next slide. What's interesting is that of those who aren't working, of non-full-time working moms, 61% of them say they would go back to work if their child had access to quality childcare at a reasonable cost. So you have this ready available workforce that's on the sidelines as a result of childcare, and they want to go back to work. They want to be able to provide financially for their family. Next slide. And I shared this data earlier, but you can certainly view the Untapped Potential in Ohio report on the Chamber's website, and you can share the link afterwards. Next slide. So there's kind of no wonder why businesses are talking about childcare, but I hope that helps provide context for kind of how we've been able to engage employers and why you hear employers and your local chambers talking about childcare in this budget and beyond. Next slide. So thinking about how this translates to the state budget, you can put advance the next slide there. We have a few budget priorities that are focused on expanding access to publicly funded childcare, and recognition that at 145%, we are not meeting the needs of so many working families. Governor DeWine proposed in this budget cycle to increase income for a family's initial eligibility, to increase it to 160% of the federal poverty level. And This increase would allow a family of 3 with an annual income of $42,640 now to qualify for initial eligibility. And the state is saying that they could serve 11,000 more children with that expansion. The House did not keep that expansion, so they drew back the governor's proposal to keep the federal poverty level eligibility at 145% of the federal poverty level. And the ask now facing the Senate among childcare advocates and business leaders is to restore the governor's budget proposal. So again, to get back up to 160% of the federal poverty level. Next slide. The second way that we are wanting to expand access to childcare is through the Childcare Choice Voucher Program that the governor and the administration has been implementing over the last year since he announced it in his State of the State. And this created a voucher program to serve families who were above 145% of the federal poverty level, up to 200% who are working. So essentially, a family goes to qualify, they realize they make too much to qualify for a subsidy, they can access this voucher program and get served by a local provider. The executive or Governor DeWine's budget proposed to expand that Child Care Choice Voucher program to serve an additional 29,000 families with those vouchers. And the House restricted that expansion proposal at the end of the day to an investment of $100 million per fiscal year. And so we believe this is serving approximately 10,000 less children than the governor's proposal. So we're currently asking the Senate to restore the governor's budget proposal in recognition, again, that the Child Care Choice Voucher is one key opportunity to increase access to childcare, along increasing the initial eligibility to serve more families who really need it and who otherwise don't have the ability to pay for childcare. Next slide. The third ask, which is reflected both through the expansion in eligibility and the expansion of the Child Care Choice Voucher program, is that typically we spend $400 million a year from our Temporary Assistance for Needy Families block grant. So where the House has drawn back the budgets or the governor's proposal, it's been by constraining the amount of TANF dollars that are being spent on the system. And so while these policies will expand access to more kids, if the House version remains, if they constrain the system by not allowing all of the governor's proposed spending from TANF to occur, because they've been spending $400 million year over year, this means that we'll be spending less on childcare. The investment overall will be lower than it has been in past years. And we are trying to at least keep that investment at the same level. Why would we shrink this system when families' needs so far outweigh the current investment? So continuing to maintain this federal spend on childcare will allow us to serve more families, and again, not draw back on our investment at a time when we really need to lean into it. Next slide. So those are the three asks that we've been really focused on in the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll hand it back to John to help relay questions to the panel. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the members of the panel? All right. One more time. Are there any questions for members of the panel?
I have a question for Lynanne. We certainly support the same budget priorities and the things that Qianna said. What's kind of the best use of our advocacy energy right now?
Yeah, so the Senate will be hearing full finance testimony next week, but they are reviewing all of the amendments that have been submitted so far. So at this point in time, we're kind of in a wait and see to see what the Senate proposal will look like. We are hopeful that it doesn't harm the childcare system more than the House's proposal, but want to be prepared for whichever direction that they may choose to go, that we are able to respond and understand the impact on kids and families. After the Senate completes their footprint on the bill, we'll then have essentially three what are pretty distinct budget proposals, or we anticipate to be distinct budget proposals that need to be reconciled in the conference committee. And so while the conference committee doesn't have additional hearings, it's up to us advocates to, again, put as much pressure on the legislature to make sure that they prioritize childcare during those conference committee discussions. So two things. One, once we know what the Senate does, we'll be able to respond to that. And so we'll have some advocacy opportunities depending upon what the Senate budget choices are. And then we are also hosting with other partners a working families rally that's focused on investments in childcare and the child tax credit during the period of time when the conference committee will be convening to hold them, hold policymakers and the conferees accountable to what Ohio families and businesses, and of course the workforce behind the workforce, our childcare professionals are asking for, which is maintaining this investment in childcare and being able to expand to serve more families. I'm happy to put the link in the chat if you're interested in engaging in the rally.
Thank you, Lynanne. We do have a question. In the chat. Do you have sign-on letters you want us to sign, or social media we can push out?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. We have, and this is coming, this is coming from another kind of stakeholder. I was just wondering who it was coming from. So that business letter that I shared in my presentation, that has been shared. We had a childcare sign-on letter where we had a number of different organizations sign on. That was delivered last week. We have another sign-on letter focused on maternal and young child health issues that'll be delivered next week. And then we just closed our kind of women's engagement letter that had kind of hundreds of sign-ons and a couple handfuls of organizational sign-ons as well. That'll be delivered in the next few weeks to legislators. So at this point in time, we don't have any additional sign-on opportunities, but we have a social media toolkit around the rally that really highlights the policy needs, including childcare, that we're happy to share with you to push out. And of course, I didn't mention this, but you should continue to reach out to your policy makers. It's just that at this point in time, the Senate right now is kind of taking stock of all of the amendments and doing their triage of those. So there's not as many public opportunities outside of the Finance Committee meeting next week, but please call and share with your members as you see fit.
Hi, I have a question. This is Tasha Booker with Action for Children. Hi, Lynanne. Hi, Dr. Stanford. Really good to see you. I thought that was you, Dr. Stanford. My question is, I just left a meeting with the other Ohio Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies. And we're hearing, we actually had a visit by DCY, and they talked about how there could be a chance that there's even more cuts coming to the state. However, many legislators are working to ensure that the trickle-down cuts do not impact families in childcare. So, Lynanne, can you offer a little bit of clarity on our messaging? Is it really to stabilize, ensure no deeper cuts? Because we know no more money is coming, right? So it's not like increase the budget for working families. It's more about help me figure out what that message is. Because one of the things we want to do as a collective is making sure we're all saying the same language. And we're hearing from some camps, it's no more cuts. Others are saying increase the funding. We want to make sure that we're not, upsetting some of the representatives that are actually working on our behalf with the mixed messaging.
Sure. So when it comes to childcare, the ask is to restore the proposal to the governor's proposal, which from the House budget is restoring $200 million of federal spending appropriation authority. So in the instance of childcare, there was actually not any proposal to spend more state revenue. So the dollars that are being considered for this budget are child care development block grant dollars, which come from the federal government, can only be spent on childcare, and the temporary assistance for needy family funds that have been budgeted over time for childcare, but are spent on low-income families. So in that instance, we certainly could see additional cuts, but it would mean less spending of federal dollars. So if they were to cut state revenue from the child care investment, then we might be compromising our ability to draw down federal funds. But because there was no new proposal for state investment, I would hope that there's no, additional cuts of the state investment in the childcare system. But I think we're prepared to be able to respond to any of those potential threats. On the other policy side, like child tax credit and those maternal and young child health or other investments that you all may be watching that require an increased state investment, policymakers have all sorts of different priorities, and you've heard a number of them, whether they're kind of large dollar or small dollar. So I think policymakers during the budget process are always seeking where they can take revenue from, and also whether or not they can generate any additional revenue. So I think there's kind of no promise on any of the proposals. As advocates, we want to be watching out for any change in those. There has been some discussion that's happening in the legislature around gaming as a potential source of new revenue. So I wouldn't say that there's not options or ability for legislators to make choices around new revenue, but they're also looking at policy priorities that could cost a lot of state money that could cut into any new investment that was proposed in young children or working families. So I feel like that was a long answer to say. I think the aligned message is trying to ensure that we have no additional cuts. And to me, maintaining the status quo from an investment perspective is restoring to the governor's budget, and also implementing those expanded policies around access to utilize the money that we have to invest in childcare to meet the demand that families have right now.
Thank you, Lynanne, for that answer. Are there any other questions?
I also put a link in the chat. It's to sign up with your personal email so we can engage with you on any future advocacy efforts. We're building out our system and trying to engage people as individual citizens rather than within whatever position they may hold.
Thank you, Julie. I'm checking the chat one more time. I don't see any new questions in the chat. For everyone, if you're interested in the slide deck, we will be posting the slide deck onto the Children's Caucus webpage later on this week, and so you should be able to get that to see the slide deck later on this week on the webpage, along with the video from today's presentation. And so with that, thank you, Lynanne, Julie, and Qianna for a very informative discussion about childcare in Ohio. The next meeting of the caucus is scheduled for June 16th from 2:30 to 3:30. The topic for the June meeting will be the Family Connects Ohio program. And if you are not familiar with this program, it is a program meeting the needs of moms and their babies after the baby is born to help them help mothers better understand what developmental um, um, what they can do to ensure that their babies develop in a positive way. So I hope you can join us for that conversation on June 16th. We will definitely send out a save the date announcement in about another week, and then after that, we'll have the link for you to be able to register for that meeting available about 2 weeks prior to June 16th. Thank you all again for attending the meeting today. We greatly appreciate your attendance. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of the week. Take care, everybody.